Hey everyone, welcome back to Gaming in the Keats. I'm your host Chris, and I'm bringing you a battle report this fine, cold, wintry week here. It is a practice game for an event in February that is being run by my good friend Vamps in Maryland at the Titan Games and Hobbies store up in Timonium, Maryland. So I'm getting a practice game in, trying out some new units, or at least I wouldn't say new units. Well, some of them are a little new. Others are just revamped units with the new rule changes for Dread Elves. So, trying some things out. Not sure about them. We'll see. But the cool thing is that my opponent for today has driven down, I think, 2.5 hours to come play at the Titan Games and Hobby store, and we had an entire game day. So I think 8 of us actually showed up today, representing the Ninth Age, which is pretty awesome. I know Mark came down as well, so it's another fairly decent drive there. And my opponent is an incredibly experienced ETC player as well, so I'm going to have my work cut out for me. Alright, so going over my list, just a few changes here. The Dread Prince build is still the same. Actually, hold on, have we done this build yet on the previous report? No, I think the previous report she might have been on a Manticore. Either way, if she's on the Chariot, she has this build. It's basically the same build that I build with the Manticore anyway. So she's the battle line hero, so she's doing the 18-inch courage bubble, which is awesome because she's courage 10. Just on a Raptor Chariot, so 4 wounds, a shield to do a 1-up armor save this time, Basalt Infusion for that nice flaming Aegis. Now we have the Great Weapon again, so the Hatred and Multi-Wounds 2 in the first round of combat, which is pretty awesome. We just have a 5-up Aegis normally, and then a Potion of Healing to just give her effectively an extra wound, which is really nice. Pretty expensive, but this is like the cheapest I could do on a Resilience 5 I don't know. It's basically I want to have one of my big models be showcased here in this event, and so I put her on the Chariot. We have the Exarch this time. I'm not doing a Sanctified Outcast or Sanctified Warlock, whatever it's called. So we're going back to an Exarch of Alchemy. We're doing Molten Copper, Corruption of Tin, Living Steel, kind of the basics of what you take for alchemy. I've tried the wall spell once and was like, nope, this isn't worth it. So, she is on Paired Weapons, Shield Breaker, and Sidemen Scale. So we only have 4 spells here, but each spell, what's important about this setup is that each spell can affect both ranged or has a ranged element to it, as well as a combat element to it, which is nice. So once you start to see what else is in the list, we just have a 35 spears. This time I'm doing a Banner of Speed, and you'll see how that pairs with the altar in a little bit. We have 15 Temple Militants with a Banner of Blood, so the Banner of Blood gives them Devastating Charge plus 1 attack. But you can only do a max unit of 15. So we're trying this little unit out. That unit can put out, if I'm doing 8 wide, so 8, 16, 24 plus 7. Ooh. That's a lot of attacks. Granted, they're only strength 3, AP 0, but, hopefully alchemy is there to help with that. We have 10 auxiliaries just because. I wanted another scoring unit with a flag and a little bit of extra range support. Now we're doing 4 Gorgons. I think you saw them in the last battle. Oh, yes, so that means I did use the Chariot in the last battle. Yes, so the 4 Gorgons are here. I'm just going to be rocking them and see how they go. We have 15 Obsidian Guard again, with Banner of Blood as well. Now, this time I'm trying 6 Dread Acolytes with the Banner of Blood again. So you can take up to 3 of these banners for Dread Elves. Now, for Height 2 models, you are only allowed 6 in the unit. So for 297 points, if I'm running 6 wide, so what? That is effectively 25 acolyte attacks and 5 horses. So if yeah, that's offense 7 paired weapons and +1 to wound all the time with AP 1 base. So I think that's pretty spicy. We got the Divine Altar of Yema, so that's the one that gives you the +1 mobility for all friendly units within 12 inches of it. And it gives you Devastating Charge Strider, which is just so great with the spears. So that way I can charge the ruins and forests and all that stuff and still get all of my rank bonuses, because the spears, yeah, they have a little bit of output, especially with the Exarch in there, but they're really there to just like break solid, which is like the new form of Steadfast. We have 2 Hunting Chariots to help with some board control, do some high strength range damage, just, pew pew, and then if they need to, they can get in the way and die, or combo charge. We'll see. And then we have, we're trying out a Mist Leviathan again. Dread Elves have a pretty big weakness to range damage. Range and particularly shooting right now is really good, and so I kind of want something to help deal with that. So we're putting in the Mist Leviathan there to give me that nice turn 1 for all my height 1 units, a soft cover, and then once I move into 8 inches of any enemy unit, regardless of the turn, they get a -1 to hit with their shooting attacks. So that's really nice. And it's a 9 wound. It's effectively like a 9 wound flying chaff piece that maybe I can threaten wizard bunkers with. So we'll see how I choose to use it. Alright, so into my opponent's list. He's got a Lord on a Chariot, also has the Battle Line Hero, because, like, for 30 points, why wouldn't you take that? He's on a Razor Tusk Chariot, he's got a shield, so I think he's a 2-up, 4-up here. And then he's got the B-stacks of Fatal Folly, so that's the one where if you roll any 1s to hit it, he immediately gets to make an attack at that step, which is pretty awesome. He's great for munching away on infantry, I think. And then, going into the Soothsayer here, you've got some, Predator's Instinct, which is an amazing spell. Awaken the Beast, Swarm of Insects, I hate that spell. Totemic Summon, also hate that spell. And Wild Shape, to just help out the rest of the list. You got Seat of the Dark Forest, so you're putting down another forest, and you got Talisman of the Void, so the list channels 4, it looks like. We got 2 Wildhorn Chieftains. One's a Battle Standard Bearer with Hero's Heart and a Troll Tonic. Yay. That's a cheap little cheeky build. I really like that, actually. I might have to steal that, Jeff, for one of my own characters. But then we also have just a regular Wildhorn Chieftain who's going in the ambushing unit of Wildhorns, which is pretty awesome because this little trick right here means that Wildhorn unit can count with being within the General's leadership and the Battle Standard Bearer presence within Rally Around the Flag, because the unit both has a Standard Bearer and a Musician, and now with the Captain of attached. It's a nice little combo there to make sure that unit doesn't run away or freak out. Speaking of freak out, it has a Banner of the Wild Herd, so they get +1 strength and AP with those for 1 turn. With those throwing weapons, so that's gonna hurt. 3 Raiding Chariots, ouch, hate that. 10 Mongol Raiders, so that's a nice little chaff/wizard bunker. We got 2 units of Longhorns with halberds, so that's they're gonna be tough units to shift for sure. Just got 6 Gargoyles for chaff, 5 Feral Hounds for like chaff and also countercharging, because I didn't realize in this game until this already happened, spoiler alert, but these Feral Hounds are actually interesting when they charge. Like they have extra strength, I think, and an attack when they charge, so that's pretty nice. And then you got 2 Cyclopses to round out the list. Here are the pregame settings here. So we got the mountainous crags, the map, we got mutual encroachment, so we're pinched in on the 6 inches, and then we can choose to deploy a scoring unit within a terrain feature that's totally within our half of the battlefield if we wish. So you'll see my opponent take advantage of that in a moment. We have secure targets, so we have two markers 24 inches away from each other in the center of the table, and you have to be within 6 inches of those markers for the duration of turns 3 to 6 in order to count as scoring them, and they have to be scoring units that are within those 6 inches. And you score that if you have at least one scoring unit there and your opponent just has none. That's how I read that. So yeah, interesting. My secondary was Enslave and Ransom, so I think I have to run down 2 units now. And then my opponent got Forbidden Trespass. So he has to stop me from starting my turn with a scoring unit on a terrain feature that's wholly outside of his deployment zone. So in terms of actual deployment and everything, my opponent won and made me choose sides. So I chose this side here, the top edge with the water, the wall, and the ruins. And my opponent made the hill their forbid trespass target, and they put their Seat of the Dark Forest effectively right in this like square, right in this little like empty space here, so he could deploy one of his Wildhorn units in there. So on my matchup analysis, whatever you want to call it, pre-game thoughts, I think I used to call it. But on the macro side of things, like, again, I want to go first because I still want to take board control with this list. I think my list does have a slight advantage on the primary because that's I feel like I have units that can easily just like it goes into the third point here. Most of my units can outfight his. He basically needs to be supporting a lot of his units together. Like the spears are really tough for him to deal with. I think in general. Now, granted, there are tools to deal with units like that. My opponent does have. We both I think have tools for our armies, but I think generally just without magic support. My units can, if I'm getting the charge, then like my units can outfight his. But my opponent also has more maneuverable chaff, and he can probably dictate some of those matchups a bit better than my list can. So I do think my opponent's stronger magic phase is going to be an issue for me for sure. I haven't been investing a lot in magic because I've found that, at least for me, it hasn't been totally worth the investment to go heavy in magic, at least in this edition, but then we'll see how it plays out here. I think both lists do have comparable tools for ranged threats. You have the two Cyclopses with their rock lobbing, which is nice. You have Swarm of Insects, which is always an annoyance for me. I have my hunting chariots, so it's like we don't have a lot of range, but what we do have can be pretty effective, I think. And then also going into this matchup, like due to the level of my opponent and their experience, I absolutely have to like if I was to rate this matchup, I have to rate it on the player as well as the army. So I think generally Beast Herds is a good matchup for me for Dread Elves because they really don't have a lot of armor, and then like my little spells can just take away the little save that they have. I'm usually getting +1 to wound then you combo that with advantage position. Now I'm getting a lot more attacks at a higher initiative, so I can make his combat units basically combat ineffective before he gets the swing, hopefully. So it's usually like a light green, I would say, matchup, but then with my opponent and like skill level, I'm rating this like an orange. Like I don't have expectations to win this match. In the micro side of things, like I think I know like immediately when I saw the chariots, I'm like, all right, my chariots are going to target his chariots because mine have a longer threat range. I don't want those chariots going into my spears, or my squishy small infantry units. I'm going to use my chariot prince to hopefully zone those gorgons, like push up, zone the gorgons, and zone his chariot prince, because I think my chariot prince can take his on pretty easily, especially with the multi-wounds too. Like, that's the big thing that tips it over. The hatred in the multi-wounds too is just really good. I do have to be conscious of those Cyclopses having divine attacks. The Gorgons aren't going to like that. But I noticed that the Cyclopses are only offense defense 2, which is really weird. But cool. Like, that means I'm actually kind of happy with, like, pushing them with, as long as it's with units that they can't stop. I'm actually happy engaging them in combat. And then I just need to be conscious of the ambushing unit. To be honest, I haven't dealt with an ambushing unit in quite a while, and so, like, it's only one, so I'm not exactly sure how to kind of stop that. So let's see how I'm able to accomplish that in the battle. So as you can see here, my opponent dropped to get the first turn, so I counter deployed as such. You can see here that I have my auxiliaries on the far left to kind of, be here around the objective. We have Gorgons right across from the Cyclopses. When I deployed them, I debated between putting them on the far right to deal with the chariots or the far left to deal with the Cyclopses. And, I kind of just said, I'm going to see if the Gorgons can deal with these Cyclopses, or Cyclopsi. I don't know. What's the plural there? I know they have divine attacks, but then they, like, hit these things on 5s. So we'll see. Let's see if it's a good matchup for the Gorgons. We have the witches right next to the chariot. Here's the base of the chariot. It's just Marathi's wings just kind of cut into the altar. So the model's, she's back here chilling, but the base is right here. We have the Miss Leviathan just, like, chilling in behind. We have Mr. Cuddles 2. That's his name. He's my Kraken who's standing in for being a Misty Leviathan right here. We have the big unit of spears with the altar of Yema on the next side of them. We have my Obsidian Guard, the 15 Obsidian Guard here. We have, because I was the defender, I was able to vanguard a unit 3 inches, so I vanguarded my Acolytes. Then we have the Hunting Chariot number 1, Hunting Chariot number 2. So from here, my opponent goes, we got Hounds, we got the Raiding Chariots. This is already into his turn 1, and you can see he's moved up, vanguarded the Hounds. So Hounds, Chariots come up. His first unit of Longhorns coming up right in behind. We have the Chariot kind of zoning this space here to charge out with the Chariots to try and, see if just to help out this side of the board. We have, the other unit of Wildhorns. His wizard was here, but then he moved out the wizard into the bunker, and then you have the BSB right here, and I put my chariot right across to hopefully, like, snipe some characters and get a counter charge in. Then he's got the two Cyclopses right here, and then in reserve for the ambushing, you can see the unit of Wildhorns right here, and these are his models for his totemic summons. So as you can see, my opponent pushes up. He gets off. I let him get off a Razorwing Totem on this unit to make them Agility 6, but I already have a plan for this. Because I really don't care if they're Agility 6, because my Acolytes are Agility 7 when they charge. And then I believe I stop everything else. Okay, turn 1. I push forward with the Gorgons. I'm saying, you know what? I don't care if both of your Cyclopses charge me. I'm not concerned. So, yeah, he's got 10 attacks between the two of them, hitting me on 5s. I got my Petrifying Stare, and I got 8 attacks that would split in between. I guess I could probably kill one maybe between 3 of them, and then put some attacks onto the final one. We'll see. But I'm just saying, like, you know what? I'm gonna take that all day. And then you can also see here at the top, I charge. I wanted to see what would happen. I don't think this is a great idea. Just because I know that the Wildhorn unit, no matter how much damage I do, like they're still gonna get at least like 2 ranks of attacks on me with hatred and their halberds. So I'm just trying to see how much damage I can do back and hopefully survive the incoming hits and stick that unit in place. That's my plan here upon charging the unit. Chariots get within 18 inches of these chariots to start shooting them. I actually keep the Obsidian Guard right out of charge range with this unit here in case this Acolyte unit just blows up. So we can't. And then I also don't want his bigger unit charging my witches, because yes, I can potentially do some damage to the unit, but I think ultimately with the counting static in the beginning of the turn, like I just don't want him breaking through. So I've kept those 2 units back out of charge range. However, I did push the spears up to man the wall, and I made sure that when I moved my chariot, he couldn't just charge my chariot past, like with this unit here, to hit the unit in case and just tried to break me through combat res anyway. Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could have played a bit more aggressively with these 2 units, and maybe man the wall here. But this was the decision I made. In the magic phase, my opponent stops the -1 resilience onto this unit, but I am able to get off the hereditary spell. Oh yes, and I do need to say I switched the -1 armor spell for the hereditary spell just because I wanted my opponent to have -1 armor against me as well versus me just having -1 armor against them. So I switched it for that because I did want to have the missile just to be able to cause a wound or 2 to this chariot guy because he's out in the open there. But so far my opponent stopped that and stopped the -1 resilience, and I got my hereditary onto this unit here. All right, and then in combat, what you see here is both of us actually have a bit of a fluff fest. I only kill off the back rank. I rolled a bunch of hits, but still wounding on 4s with +1 to wound, and I did not wound that much. But my opponent did not get a save against it, and in return, even with the hatred, my opponent did not roll very well to hit, and then I spike not only on my 6-up armor saves because he's now only AP1 against me, but also my 5-up Aegis saves. So I just get lucky here, and everyone just sticks around. Alright, no charges in my opponent's turn 2. Effectively, he was able to move back 1 Cyclops, just a regular move, and then he was able to march outside of my line of sight. This was a mistake I made right here. March outside of my line of sight with both, not only the Gorgons, but also the Mist Leviathan. So this is poor placement of my Mist Leviathan. I could have easily prevented this. My goal here with the Mist Leviathan was to come in and face the center in case he did decide to charge or move up. But instead, I could have just angled him slightly to the left to avoid that from happening. So, well played from my opponent there. And now he's threatening this little scoring unit. Furthermore, you can see the ambushers did turn up. I didn't exactly know how to stop this. I figured they were going to find a way to turn up anyway. So I'm just kind of like, well, I'll just keep my army fairly intact, and let's see what I decide to do in order to deal with this unit now that's in my backfield. I am actually happy that my opponent put them here, because now I do have some tools to deal with them, versus out to the side, and to try and maybe contest the objective on this side. So I'm happy about that placement there. Let's see. In the magic phase, unfortunately, I stopped everything I needed to, in terms of magic buffs or things like that. I let Blackwing Totem go off again because it doesn't really matter because we're going to be striking Simon anyway. I really don't care. But unfortunately, I was unable to stop a Totemic Summon. So yeah, that was not good. Oh, you know what? I did stop a swarm of insects, probably on the Mist Leviathan. And then my opponent opens up with this unit. He pops his Banner of the Wild Horn, and he nukes like 10 of these models. And so I rolled an 11 for the panic, and they panic. I have to remove the banner now because they panic and run 9. And so by removing the banner, that prevents them from chaffing my own Gorgon unit. So this unit is basically done. They're like, ugh. But that was, again, yes. My opponent did well there to just like nuke this unit of Temple Militants. However, I will say this: I'm happy that he didn't choose to go after the Spears or the Obsidian Guard because they're more expensive. So, okay, let's talk about it. All right. So first of all, in combat with the Acolytes and the Longhorns, this time the Acolytes just wake up and just kill 2 ranks, and like bringing this unit down to maybe 10 models, but they do get slaughtered in return. Like the whole unit just dies. So that being said, I choose, so the order of operations here, which could have been probably wrong here. The order of operations were, first, I charge the Mist Leviathan into his into his mongrels. He chooses to hold. He passes his terror check. Then I charge the Gorgons into the mongrels, and that's when he chooses to flee. Alright, so then I redirect the Mist Leviathan. No, the Mist Leviathan was too far to redirect into this unit here, so it just fails forward, but the Gorgons actually redirect. I pass my disciplined because I'm within 18 inches of the the general commanding presence here. I pass the redirect and hit the flank of his other Wild Horde unit. Now my opponent elected to hold this. I think in hindsight, now knowing with the new rules of solid, and steady and all that stuff, because both of us are Strider here. So we don't care about the woods. But with this new rule set, I think my opponent just wouldn't have put himself in this position, just period, knowing how this will work, and you'll see how it plays out. So I think, yes, the Gorgons take a nice, juicy flank into the Wildhorn unit. I am very, very happy to be on the end of that. He did move his wizard outside of his bunker in the previous turn, so the fleeing bunker right here, it just became chaff, and the wizard is chilling somewhere back here. He does charge his oh, wait, excuse me, no, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Then I turn around my auxiliaries, and I go to try and shoot at this unit here to do some damage, and then I turn my chariot prince around to basically block this unit from getting into the rear of the spears, as well as the Obsidian Guard are right there for a counter charge. So there's not a lot of static combat res here, so if he charges me, and his character is right here, if he charges me, then he's only got the 2 ranks and a banner, and I think my chariot will do pretty well against this unit, especially now that it's lost its Banner of the Wild herd, or whatever it's called. So then with the spears, what you see is after the Gorgons charged, I charged the spears into the front of this unit, I charged the spears into the front of the other Wild Horde unit, and they fled. And then what you see here is my 1 hunting chariot choosing to charge them as well, because you only make 1 flee move now, and I caught them. It was actually very, very close. I think I only needed 2 to get them, because he rolled very low for his flee, and so I redirected into this unit here. I needed a 5 to get there, just on a single dice, and I did not roll the 5. So, oh well. In Magic, I'm able to get a -1 resilience off onto this unit. So that's really nice. Happy about that. And then in shooting, I kill a couple here, but he's all good. I don't even cause a panic check. And over here, we remove the unit, and I try and overrun and hit his chariots here. Oh, by the way, I should mention, you'll see that shooting has already done, I think now 5 wounds to the chariot. I've killed one and put a wound on another. My opponent did pass all his DTs from moving back these chariots in the previous turn. So my goal here is to hit this unit and overrun. I think I need either a 10 or an 11, possibly, to hit this chariot unit. Might be a bad idea, but I'm just going to go for it at this rate. All right. Oh, and then in other news, the Temple militants, they do end up rallying, and I reform them to face the incoming Cyclops. So, yeah, in close combat, I killed enough of his unit to the point where I took away his... because I had 1 full rank, he wasn't able to do anything back to me. I have 1 full rank. He had 2 ranks, but you take 1 away for being in his flank. So I took away his solid, and this unit just like mulched that unit. And then I do run them down. I catch them, so it gives me 1 of my points for my secondary, and I don't make it into the gargoyles. I run directly past his wizard, and I run out of line of sight of his chariot lord. So now I'm probably going to take a rear from the Cyclops, but quite frankly, I'm not too worried about it, because these Gorgons are awesome. So yeah, the Gorgons just broke that unit and ran it down. So, you can see here some charges and flees here. The Cyclops charged the auxiliaries, and I just elected to flee. This is probably a bad idea. I should have just held, perhaps. But I was hoping that he'd fail his redirect. But he ends up making the redirect. Like the the command check to redirect into the Mist Leviathan. And so he hits the flank of the Mist Leviathan. And I think his goal is to overrun into the... militants, and then hopefully slingshot himself into the spears. So yeah, that's not looking good there for old Mr. Cuddles too. So I flee through this unit. I didn't even take dangerous terrains because both my opponent know that like this totemic summit will just randomly move into this unit and just kill it because it's fleeing. So there you have it. My opponent does not charge, and is going to try and shoot the Obsidian Guard down with their throwing weapons. You'll also see here that because I didn't make the charge with my chariot, he countercharges me. I think he didn't take any DTs for this one either, which is kind of annoying. Like the chariots passed all their dangerous terrains. And then furthermore, I was caught off guard by this, but these hounds ended up charging my chariot, and this is the second time something like this has happened with my hunting chariot, where I've like put them dangerously close to a charge of something that's like theoretically not that great in combat, but in this case, he could easily just break me if I don't kill a couple of models. And this unit does put out like 2 attacks now when they charge and +1 strength, so I'm like, ooh, this isn't good. The Gorgon, of course, does take the rear, or excuse me, the Cyclops does take the rear of the Gorgons, and I should make note here, the Cyclopses were throwing stones at the Gorgons, but they were just not hitting. They were like hitting on 5s, and it just wasn't going well for the Cyclopses here, so my opponent has been charging them instead. Gosh, in my opponent's magic phase, I really couldn't tell you what my opponent got off. The only thing I think I stopped some combat buffs onto. I stopped a combat buff onto this Cyclops here. My opponent's able to get off a different combat buff. I think a +1 strength onto this guy. Here onto this Cyclops, as well as I do have to let this go, but I do let the swarm of insects kill off the remaining temple militants. Just basically, I just didn't want him slingshotting himself closer and closer into my lines. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to give you those points. Screw it. So yeah, that was my decision there. And in close combat, so some good and bad luck. The dogs come in. They actually do 3 wounds to the chariot, and then I just break. I do kill 1 in return, but I break. And then he runs me down and hits the board edge and reforms. And then here, I hold. We fluff. I think I snuck a wound or two to his Cyclops here. He doesn't do anything to me. He misses because the Miss Leviathan is distracting. So he's hitting me on 5s. And yeah, I'm able to hold and reform, which was wild. I think he had a charge, a flank, a rank, and so it's also possible that he did like 1 or 2 wounds to me. So whatever I needed to roll, it was a 5 to stick, and I rolled the 5 and I stuck, which is super lucky. I was actually super lucky. So good job, Miss Leviathan. Furthermore, the Cyclops comes in, and the Gorgons end up putting like 5 wounds on this guy, even with the restricted attacks. It didn't matter. It was just like the +1 to wound really helped. I'm hitting him on 2s effectively because he's only defense 2, he's offense 6 here. And I put a wound up through as well with my petrifying stare. So even though he had a charge and a rear, and our ranks cancel out, and he killed 1. I still did enough to just make my discipline check, and I make my command check and reform. So I'm feeling pretty good about this situation. Oh, and I should mention here, you see this little dice here. In my magic phase, I did get off a molten copper onto this guy in the previous turn, so he has taken a wound from molten copper. So yes, as you can see here, I did take 2 wounds from that charge here with the Cyclops. Also, you can see I failed to stop another totemic summon, and this one I saved my dice for, and I still failed to I failed to dispel it. So anyway, in my response, I charge the Obsidian Guard. My opponent does a stand and shoot. He does kill a fair number of them, and then I also charge the Chariot in. Now we're talking in our group chat after the battle report, and as it turns out, because the Chariot has to charge first in order to make way for the Obsidian Guard, the moment the Chariot makes contact, this unit cannot actually do a stand and shoot against the Obsidian Guard. So we did that wrong, but I think I only actually lost from the stand and shoot maybe like 2 or 3 models. And here, 7 Obsidian Guard with the Banner of Blood is still 21 attacks, so I'm not concerned. So Chariot and Obsidian Guard go in. The spears actually have to charge gargoyles because they're being chaffed. Miss Leviathan is going to be chilling. And yeah, so I just got to get rid of this unit. In my magic phase, I get off a +1 to hit on the Obsidian Guard because I really need to ensure that this unit dies. I think my opponent stopped a -1 resilience onto the Cyclops here, or he stopped a -1 resilience onto this Cyclops, or it's possible I got off the Hereditary. We'll see in the next slide. But yeah, so magic is, starting to come in a little clutch here. So, yep, as you can see, the Obsidian Guard just like with the Chariot combined, just absolutely nuked the unit. I think there were like 2 or 3 models left. And so they broke, and I ran them down with the Obsidian Guard, so that's my second point for my secondary there. So I just turned to face the Cyclops in this regard, to countercharge it, because I don't think my Miss Leviathan's going to kill it this turn. But in this round of combat, I only take 1 more wound, and in return, I actually put like 3 wounds on this guy. Yeah, so that's crazy. The Miss Leviathan's just sneaking all these wounds through on the Cyclops. This, I have a question. You can comment in here. So when I hit the board edge, can I reform them to be in a line, like say facing the totemic summons, like giving a front and then a rear, instead of just hitting the board edge and then turning around? Is that possible? I'm not sure yet. So yeah, by all means, comment if you know the answer. And then as you can also see, the spears, yes, the spears get rid of the gargoyles, and as magic or no magic needed, the Gorgons just absolutely, like, they put the final wounds onto the Cyclops and turn to face the oncoming charges that they're about to receive. So Beast turns turn 4. The chariots do indeed charge in to the Gorgons. His chariot lord charges into the Gorgons. So his wizard moves into the bunker here. You can see, now I got super lucky here. My opponent rolled, I think my opponent needed either an 8 or 9 on 3 dice for random movement to get into the Obsidian Guard for both of his totemic summons, and he rolled a 6 on 3 dice for both of them. So, Jeff, really appreciate you. But yeah, so that was just really unlucky for my opponent there. Yeah, so in my opponent's magic phase, I stop any sort of buffs that go onto this unit here, onto the Cyclops, I should say. At this rate, I let a buff go off onto his Chariot Lord, because at this rate, I'm kind of figuring, yeah, the Gorgons are probably dead, but they've done their job. So, and then I have to say, going into combat, all of a sudden, I don't have a picture of this, but the Mist Leviathan takes out the Cyclops. I just spike. I spike on the dice. He doesn't have he still has an Aegis save, and he doesn't roll it. So the Mist Leviathan just ends up doing the final wounds to the Cyclops. Like my handlers hit, the Leviathan hit, I do the wounds. Yeah. Like, I needed 5s to wound, and, like, the Leviathan put in, like, 3 wounds through at least. Because that was 4 attacks, and he didn't make a single Aegis save. So, and the handler snuck a wound through as well. So, super lucky there. Like, good job, Miss Leviathan. And then, yeah, in other news, he blows up the Gorgons. Yep, and as you can see, impact hits alone just like nuked that unit. I'm not even able to, I don't think I'm even able to swing onto the unit, or maybe maybe I was able to put 1 more wound on here. I don't know, I think there should be a wound there. Either way, yeah, the Gorgons explode, but I'm happy, they did their job. Okay, into my turn 4. I can't charge either of these summons, so I move the Obsidian Guard like this in front of the one, just accepting their fate. So I'm giving a front and a rear. Hopefully they can do some wounds back to the totemic summons before they die. I move the Chariot guy up. She does take 2 DT wounds, but I save 1 with an Aegis, so she has a wound on her. The Mist Leviathan comes over here to threaten the Wizard Bunker. So what you see here is my spears charged the chariots, and he chose to flee, and I caught them. And so the spears are right here before I do my reform. So magic, I believe I get a +1 to hit onto the spear unit, but that's kind of it. My opponent stops the hereditary onto this guy, onto his chariot lord. And so you'll see how I reform. I had to think about this because I had to be super careful not to reform into the woods. Because even though I have Devastating Charge Strider, I do not just have Strider, so I have to be conscious of my ranks here. So this is controversial. It's a controversial reform. I reform in a way where I'm basically saying, I'm going to give your chariot lord the rear. And I'm just going to rely on the fact that I'm being solid. So mind you, I'm not in the woods. I'm outside the woods. And I said, this way, I'm facing the front to only allow the chariot lord to be in the rear. So that if you want to come in with the dogs, most likely I'm just going to kill them and take away a lot of, just take away some of the wounds that you're going to do to me. So unfortunately, oh yes, and you can see the Obsidian Guard here. They get mushed by the totemic summon, but we'll see how they do. I would say, unfortunately, my opponent is able to get off 2 different buffs off on this chariot. He gets a +1 strength, and he also gets, I'm not able to stop it. He gets a +1 strength, and he also gets the wild form off, so he does get a stomp, and so this guy is going to go to town. And basically, I'm relying on the fact that I'm going to be solid and within my general's commanding presence on a 10. So I'm sticking on a 10 with no reroll. So that's what I'm relying on here. And I stick. And as you can see, my opponent killed this many. He killed 12 models from that charge. But I'm solid, and I stick with a 10. And now this time, I command to reform. Now, I know I'm giving the dogs a rear. I understand that. But now this way, well, this way, the spears hopefully have more of a chance of wounding the dogs here. So they're not gonna get as many attacks back on my rear. And now I have more of a chance to sneak some wounds through with the petrifying stare from the altar of Yema onto this chariot lord. Okay, so I don't have a picture of this, but the obsidian guard all of a sudden put 2 wounds to the totemic summon in the rear and put 3 wounds to the one in the front. And the totemic summons just like whiff. Like they couldn't really hit me or wound me that well. I think I have now 3 models left, but I actually win the combat. And so the one, I think, crumbles and the other has a wound left. Which is wild because I started with a rank and a banner and he had a charge in a rear and I did 5 wounds. Yeah, so that was wild. So the Obsidian Guard are holding their own. And here you can see, so a mistake I made with the Mist Leviathan was, again, I let my opponent able to march outside of its line of sight, like just barely with this wizard here. So that was stupid with the Mist Leviathan. But here I decided to charge the flank of the general just to add combat res. And I don't care if I take DTs, which, surprise, I don't take any. And now I think I also reformed to put the Exarch now, by the way, in base contact with this guy. Or it's possible that happens in one more round. Maybe I don't do it this round. I'm not sure. But essentially, so I charge in, I still get another +1 to hit up onto the spears, but my opponent stops the -1 armor, and I think a -1 resilience as well. So, yeah, as you can see here, I healed the wound with the potion of healing, by the way. I chose to not march. This was a mistake. I should have just marched right here to allow me the flank charge, like take the DTs again, and I just wanted to allow myself the flank charge into the general, like give myself that opportunity. But no, I chose to not do that. That was my mistake. So let's go to combat. So in combat, my opponent, kills another, he kills 7 models here. He puts a wound on the altar. He puts a wound on the Mist Leviathan, but I sneak a couple more wounds through to the chariot. Being spears and also having, I think I snuck a petrifying stare through as well. So this guy's actually getting low. Starting to get low on some health points here. And, everyone sticks around. So I'm really happy. Now, granted, I'm about to receive this rear charge, but there's only 4 models. I'm hoping that my 5 spears in the back can poke them in the back. That would be really great. So this is, as you can see, this is actually after the combat here. So my opponent does indeed charge the dogs in. I kill 2 of them. He kind of whiffs with the dogs. He doesn't hit at all. I do another wound or 2 to this guy with this is a shield breaker. And then he ends up killing my shield breaker gal back. But now this chariot guy only has 1 more wound left, and everyone's still stuck there. You see the mongrels are not in combat. So there are also no buffs up onto this chariot guy now. So with 1 more wound, this is where I really wish I had just marched my chariot and taken the DTs from that wall. So I could get that flank charge, the final killing blow, if you will. But I'm just going to have to rely on the spears to sneak that final wound through. Let's see if they can do it. And here we go. So I am indeed able to sneak that wound through. This is the end of the game. And this roll right here was my petrifying stare roll. So I got the 5 and the 6, and my opponent fails both his fortitudes, and the Chariot Lord dies, and that is it. That is the end of the game. Whew, wow, that was intense. Thanks so much, Jeff, again, for just a really fun game and for coming down, driving all the way down. Jeff was also able to get in a second game with one of our other club mates. I actually don't know how that game went, but hope it was a lot of fun. And yeah, really, really, really appreciate the game, and it was a great learning experience as well. So let's look at the points. So all things said and done, it was a 17-3 to the Dread Elves. So I got the primary by being on that hill, by the way, at the end of turn 3 into turn 4. So that was really important with the spears. And then I also got my secondary, so I prevented Jeff from getting not only the primary, but his secondary as well. And we both had a lot of losses here, but the points that I had left on the board were significantly more expensive than what my opponent had. So it is a resounding victory for the Dread Elves, 17-3. And again, thanks so much, Jeff, for that game. I definitely, we can go into the post-game thoughts afterwards, but I really, really appreciate it. And this is definitely I think this is probably my first like real win against like an ETC level, like an ETC player in a very long time, I would say, because I don't think I've beaten Mark yet at all. I've definitely played people in Europe, but I have not beaten them either. So, yay! I've have a personal goal achieved. So, post game thoughts. In the macro side of things, you could see again, and I'm just like uncertain with my deployment and how to approach, how to approach going second. So it's just something that I continually need to work on. Like having the auxiliaries, for example, out on the far flank is just, I think, a mistake. So I need to be switched. I think they need to be switched with the Gorgons. However, I did really enjoy the Gorgons having a +1 mobility to move from the Altar of Yema, so that was pretty nice. I think it's possible. You can make the argument that I could have been more aggressive with the Obsidian Guard. Like if my plan was to not just the Obsidian Guard, but just more aggressive in general to move away from that back line. So I think perhaps that could have been a new move, but I was also conscious of just like when you calculate the static res in the beginning of the game, it becomes a bit more, you just become aware of how like my small 15 unit, 15 elf unit versus the much larger long herd unit. Like it's not. I'd prefer just to take that charge with the spears, So, and then generally Beast Herds is a good matchup for Dread Elves. I think, again, it's with a lot of squishy targets. I'm generally swinging first, and my units usually outfight Beast Herds. So really, I'm just thankful that Jeff didn't bring his dwarves, because I think he best dwarf player in the world. So so it's a good test for the Dread Elves today. In micro stuff, I was just really careless with managing my arcs. I was trying to play fairly quickly, but in so doing, I let a lot of things slide. I let things get out of my line of sight, especially with my light troops units, which are things that you can just avoid. Take that extra moment to make sure that your opponent can't march out of that line of sight. So I think I was also careless with the hunting chariots. I think initially I had the good plan of like shooting down my opponent's chariots, which I'm happy about. But then, choosing to overrun, for example, was just a mistake. I should have just and allowing the charge with the hounds was also a mistake. So I just didn't play them well. And I didn't really defend against the ambush properly. Like my opponent was still able to just pop up in my backfield. I'm still just nuke a unit. Granted, I still was able to get their points in the end. I defended with my chariot lord and the obsidian guard, so I'm happy with how I reacted. You could make the argument to instead of charging the Mist Leviathan, you could make the argument to bring the Mist Leviathan over and have the Mist Leviathan actually just stick the unit for a turn or two. But I actually wanted the Mist Leviathan kind of threatening that bunker and making charges and doing terror checks instead. So, I don't know. I committed to the decision and it worked out for me. Yeah, again, so I also just got lucky with the Mist Leviathan sticking on the 5, with the break check. I just got lucky. Like, that's it. And then it turning around and then killing the Cyclops, like, that's just luck. Which happens. It's a dice game. And then, not sure about charging the Acolytes. I don't think that was necessarily the right play, but I just wanted to, my goal was to really just, like, missile that unit in there and just make that one Longhorn unit way less effective so that when I could, basically my goal was to therefore then push with the infantry, right? So then, so I think, it worked out for me again. But, it did cost me that Acolyte unit. And then the Obsidian Guard just, like, getting lucky with the totemic summons, not my opponent not rolling to get into them, and then the Obsidian Guard turning around and then killing them and saving their points. They got half points at the end of the game. So, yeah, so a bit of luck here and there, but then... I think I was, just to say with the micro, I think I was happy with the play I did with the spears to stick that chariot lord there, and to make sure that I was getting my ranks at all times. Like I was happy, and it ultimately, it bagged me the points of the chariot lord of the Wildhorn lord. So I'm happy with that play, but yeah, overall, I think it was a good game. All right, everyone. Thanks so much again for watching. I really appreciate it if you've made it this far. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And, also just to take a look at this nice picture of Jeff's army, like just how beautifully painted it is. The whole army is just absolutely stunning. Just a lot of variety of colors, a nice fall theme going on there. I really like some of the blue to make, that really makes the army pop. So yeah, just thanks again, Jeff, for the game, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Ciao, ciao for now, y'all.